Pink slips for half the employees of the Federal Department of Education. How it could affect your kids. And then we go local to look at the Manhattan Borough President's race. The Point starts right now. Randi Weingarten is president of the American Federation of Teachers. She's joining me now from Washington, where people are still reeling from the fact that the Department of Education suffered a cut of half of its employees, 1,300 people. Randi, what does this mean for education?
So, Donald, first off, I am honored and delighted to be on your show. And, I know you for a long time, and you are one of the most effective, most fantastic journalists in a moment of time. Let me just say, she did, but she didn't actually, but in a moment of time when you see the real need for journalism. So I just want to say thank you for actually being in the game for all this time. So this is what's happening in Washington. Donald Trump and Elon Musk have decided that and because they are effectively co-presidents, and they've decided that this chaos, this confusion, this cruelty, it works for them. And they're trying to create that kind of shifting sand. I don't think that's what people voted for. I think that people don't like it. In fact, you see it in terms of the poll numbers about the Department of Education. 6 out of 10 people say they don't want it, including 6 out of 10 independents. But in reality, what's going to happen is that the federal role in education will just collapse. Now, the federal government does not control schools. States control schools, and local school districts control schools, not the federal government. But what the federal government does since the Johnson administration, since LBJ, is that they filled opportunity gaps. So they gave us, and look, we fought for it, and people in New York know this, Title I. Kids who are poor, they get money from the federal government.
But we're talking about 26 million
kids. Half the kids in public schools. 50 million kids go to public schools. So let me total this. 26 million kids get, this money from what's called Title I, for after school, for summer school, for reading specialists. 7.5 million kids get money from something called the Individuals with Disabilities Act. 7.5 million are kids with disabilities. 5.5 million kids get money from something called English language learners. 10 million kids in rural areas get monies from the Rural Acts. 10 million kids get monies from Career Tech Ed. About 12 million kids get monies from something called Pell Grants, which is helping them go to college. So when you add all this up, it's millions of kids that are going to get affected. So if you cut half the people at the Department of Education, who's going to get these grants out? How is that going to happen? And then I'll add one more or two more, which is the Department of Education is one of the biggest banks in America. When all the banks went belly up in 2008, what President Obama then did with the Congress was they put all of the school-related banking into the Department of Education. So if you are a parent and you're trying to get financial aid for your kid to go to college, you file one form, not 5,000 forms, and the Department of Education is the one that makes sure all those colleges get it. Who's going to do that work?
But I have to ask you this question. When you listen to what the Department of Education says and what Linda McMahon says, she says, we're doing this because of efficiency, accountability. We're going to redirect resources to the people who need it, parents, children, and teachers. Do you buy that argument? And do you think that the American people will buy that argument?
Well, number one, she's been there, as she says, for 5 days. So in all candor, how does she know who are the people at the Department of Education who are effective and who aren't effective? Now, none of us like bureaucracy. But when you get rid of half the people, when you get rid of the entire group of people that are in the Office of Civil Rights, you can't get things done. When you get rid of half the people that work in these departments, you got to readjust. You can't get these things done. And so I think she's a good person. I mean, we disagree on many, many things, but she has often said she is just doing the bidding of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has made no secret of the fact he wants to abolish the Department of Education. So they're abolishing it by 10,000 cuts.
But see, here's another question. If you do this, and we want to be competitive in a global market for sure, how does this affect our ability to compete nationally? Are we going to now see that we have to bring people in all kinds of categories to come into the country from other countries because we're not training our own people to be able to do the jobs we have?
So look, the answer to that question is obviously it makes us less competitive. But before somebody runs in and says, what about the NAEP scores? What about the PISA scores? What about all these scores that show that, Donald Trump says we're 40 out of 40. That is not true. We are basically in the middle of the pack of countries around the world. Countries that actually spend more in figuring out how to help. Take Switzerland. Each and every one of their young people either go to college or have an avocation.
Right.
We don't do that in America. But my point is this. We need to strengthen education. We shouldn't be satisfied with where we are right now, but that means actually spending more money on workforce development and career tech ed. That means actually aligning more. What we've learned is that if we start helping kids figure out a career in high school or in junior high school, if we actually start, and look, you know this, I taught at Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York. It was a vocational school. We fought to keep it open, and I was the AP Gov teacher. So that breaks a whole lot of myths about poor kids and black and brown kids. But we have to open up the aperture so that kids see opportunities where they are. Welding, advanced manufacturing, cyber, culinary, healthcare. High school should be about those kind of opportunities, should be about experiential learning, project-based learning. That's what the countries who outcompete us do. And so we need to strengthen schools, not strangulate them. We need to actually make sure that things are more effective, not eviscerate the Department of Education.
So the question I also have is that given the fact that there are a number of programs in New York, for example, that call for reducing class size, which means you're going to have to increase the number of teachers and the number of buildings, how do the cuts in the Department of Education federally affect the plans here in New York to reduce class size and to make it easier for kids to learn?
It's going to hugely affect people in New York City and in New York State. So just for your listeners or for your viewers, 1 out of every $9 that a school district gets these days comes from the federal government. And the reason I kind of list off or, create that list of what it's for is because this money is actually special. It's targeted to these needs. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Some of the big high schools in New York City. Roughly, schools like Truman in New York, Staten Island, a couple of the schools in Staten Island like Curtis. I'm not reading my notes, so roughly they will lose between $2.8 and $3 million in each of these high schools. So how do you then, if we have to make high school interesting and relevant for kids, and a high school is losing that much money federally, how do you have the band program? How do you have the sports programs? How do you have the welding class or the shop class? How do you have the AP Gov class? How do you have the classes that are interesting to kids? We already have been broken by COVID. We need to make school interesting to kids. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of after school. We're going to get rid of summer school. What about those kids who have disabilities? We're going to get rid of their occupational therapists, their physical therapists, their paraprofessional in the room. I mean, so these cuts are real to people, and because they're targeted for things that parents and teachers know about, what's going to happen? I've often said to my members, not in New York City, but in New York State, go to your local school board, ask them how much money is going to be gone if these things go bye-bye so Elon Musk can get a tax cut.
Randi Weingarten, we're going to have to leave it there for right now because I could talk to you for hours, but we have to go, and we'll be right back with more. Thank you so much. I'm joined now by New York State Senator Brad Hoylman-Sigal, who's running for Manhattan Borough President. First question, how do you want to put your stamp on that office?
Well, I want to put my stamp on the office. I'm the dad of 2 young daughters, and I really see this office through the eyes of my daughters to address critical issues in the city right now, whether it's building more affordable housing, addressing public safety, especially on the subways, making certain that we return integrity to government, and standing up to Donald Trump. I think those are the issues that are on New Yorkers' minds, and I'd like to deliver them as borough president.
Well, there's so many issues to talk about. I know in public safety, one of the things I thought was sort of interesting in this past week was Andrew Cuomo proposed to license e-bikes and e-scooters because people complain about the fact that they're being run over every time they walk around the streets of New York City, especially Manhattan. How do you feel about that? Is it time to have those regulators? Is it time to have license plates so that police officers can actually give them tickets?
Well, I'm glad to hear that proposal because I've already made that proposal.
Okay, so you're there for
Yes, I have legislation in Albany to do that exact thing for commercial e-bikes. Look, just yesterday, my daughter, age 7, and my husband were going to a Purim party, and they nearly got clocked by an e-bike going the wrong way down a street. That's what New Yorkers in Manhattan particularly see and feel every day. My bill would require all commercial e-bikes to be licensed. I also passed legislation to make sure that other delivery bikes are registered at the point of sale. Before they leave a retail establishment, they have to get that license and have to be registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles.
So do you think that if this happens, if there are actual license plates, that we will have the police manpower so that police will actually ticket them to try to change behavior?
Well, yes, we have to do that, but you know what is in our future with e-bikes and license plates? Cameras. Camera enforcement should be the next generation of traffic enforcement for e-bikes, and we can't stop with just licensing. We need to make certain that e-bikes and delivery riders carry insurance. Barely a third of them do at this point. So God forbid if you're hit by an e-bike, Marcia, you are out of luck.
So let me ask you this question. Should they have the insurance, or should we make the food platforms that hire them have some liability here?
The food platforms, just like Uber carries the insurance for the drivers, Uber Eats and other delivery platforms should carry them.
DoorDash.
Absolutely. We're working with them right now to get that done in Albany.
Do you think that could happen, or is there resistance because it costs a lot of money?
There is resistance, but we're going to make it happen.
Another issue in Manhattan has to do with congestion pricing and the resentment that a lot of people who live above 60th Street have because people are parking in their neighborhoods. How do you feel about residential parking permits? Is it an idea that's difficult to do, or an idea whose time has come?
It's an idea that is difficult to do, and its time has come. We most certainly have to do it. Other major cities like Boston have residential parking. Here's the thing. It may cost some money, but I think Manhattanites would be willing to pay that if they get a guaranteed spot. And also note that not everyone will get a spot, so there'll have to be a lottery. But at the same time, it is certainly going to alleviate a lot of stress for New Yorkers who have cars to have a dedicated spot.
Well, is it a question of like we need more parking garages, or is that an idea whose time has passed because people are you're trying to get people out of their cars and onto mass transit?
You know, we certainly do need more places for drivers to park, but I hope we're moving to a period in Manhattan's existence where fewer people are driving and more people are taking the subway. That's what I do every day. My husband and I, we haven't owned a car in 30 years.
So I know you brought up the idea of creating more housing. One of the things that have been proposed this past week doesn't affect Manhattan, but it's sort of an idea that's getting a lot of attention, and that is using some of the land on golf courses to build public housing. Is that an idea you would support, not support? You know, it's a question of housing versus green space.
Well, we don't have any golf courses in Manhattan.
I pointed that out.
I'm going to leave it to the Bronx and Queens borough presidents to hash that difficult issue out. But I think the point is a valid one, which there are empty lots and parcels in Manhattan. The current borough president has identified over 70,000 of them. I want to build on his plan and make it possible. We should also be looking at building above public facilities like post offices and schools. But certainly when we build on public land, the starting point should be 100% affordable. We cannot continue to fork over private parcels of land owned by the public for luxury housing.
But, you know, in Manhattan, you do have a lot of public housing that has, many of the places have a lot of land which, you know, is green space again. Would you support using some of that land to build more housing as well?
Sure, we have to look at that. I mean, we're looking at it in some of our NYCHA developments. We're looking at it in other places where there are opportunities to build housing. But of course, precious green space is just that. I mean, over my dead body is everyone going to build on Central Park. But I think the point is that Manhattanites also have a scarcity of open space. So it's a balancing act.
So what are you going to do about all the buildings, the office buildings in New York that, you know, people, because of COVID, because people like to work remotely, they're empty, or many of them are empty. How do you repurpose them in a way that makes sense? Can they be repurposed for housing?
Well, I'm strongly supportive of a Midtown rezoning plan that would do just that in places like the Garment Center, which would add a whole level of new vitality to those neighborhoods. But here's the issue. It does take time and money to get it done. So we need to dig into our administrative code, which was written in about 1870, and update it. For example,
what do you want to change?
Well, for example, you can't have a bedroom, according to the 1870 administrative code, that doesn't have a window. We should look at that, particularly as we're in this housing crisis. And we should look at SROs, single room occupancies, as a segue, particularly for young people who want to move to the city. If we can't get young people to continue to move here and have an affordable place to live, we've lost our special sauce.
But there are going to be people who are going to say, well, bedrooms should have at least some window, some light. So how are you going to counter that and convince people that that's an idea you might look at?
We're in a housing shortage. We have to make tough decisions. This should be something that's on the table. I've heard it from commercial landlords who say, I'd love to convert my half-empty building, but I've got this problem. So we need to sit at the table and hash through an outdated administrative code that really doesn't help anyone at this point.
We have about a minute left. What about empty storefronts? There's so many in Manhattan, so many all around the city. What are you going to do about that?
Well, I've carried legislation to tax landlords who keep storefronts empty, but we also need to help small businesses thrive. Look, Silver Moon Bakery on the Upper West Side is closing, to the heartache of thousands of Upper West Side residents, along with Absolute Bagel. The list goes on and on. We need to end the commercial rent tax. Do you know about this? From 96 down to Murray Street, small businesses pay an additional tax that nobody else pays in the rest of the city. That's unfair and should be stricken down.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. Luigi Mangione became something of a social media sensation after he was charged with killing a United Healthcare executive outside a Midtown hotel. How do New Yorkers feel about that? They're weighing in on your point. I wonder why you think people are supporting him.
I really don't know.
I don't know. I think it's the times right now.
We live in a hard world. You know, not everybody has access to health care.
I think a lot of people are frustrated with the healthcare system and, you know, the cost of it.
Because I believe people tired pay a lot of premium.
There are a lot of people that die every day because people are very greedy.
People are fed up. I don't approve of it. I think it's crazy just because you disagree with somebody or what's happening to support a murderer.
What he did was not right, but I guess I can see why people would want to support him or feel like they have to support him.
You mean they think he's a hero?
Some people think that, yeah.
People think he's attractive, and I think there's a general distrust of corporations that people are latching onto.
You get it.
But he still killed someone.
People have donated over $600,000 to his defense.
It's just sick.
It's sick?
To donate to him? Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's a waste of money.
I don't agree with it.
I think people can do whatever they want.
I think it's crazy. Listen, I don't agree with what he did, but I agree with the idea that we're being exploited. Absolutely.
What does the fact that he has so much support say about the state of affairs in the country today?
It's just, I think it has to do a lot with social media.
I mean, I don't know. I think more and more this generation is used to violence.
To promote hate and violence is the worst thing, and that's where our country's going. Unfortunately, it's the way of the times, and it's really scary.
I think the government need to take a lot of responsibility, and we know who.
The healthcare system is not good. People are suffering and not getting resources. I think it represents how angry people are about that.
I would say a lot of frustration, and people maybe feel helpless.
But what does the amount of support that he has, he's a suspected killer after all, say about the state of things in this country?
I think there's a major divide between the 1% and the working class, and I think that no one is looking out for us.
So he was looking out for us?
In a way, yeah. Not the right way, but in a way.